Welcome back to Talking Shop with Shop Saver. I'm Brandon, back with the gang here. Chad, Travis, Kyle. How you doing?
Every time. Yeah,
Every time.
I'm doing great.
I just love it. I don't know why. Travis, how you doing, man?
Living the dream.
You look lost over there.
Is that anything abnormal?
You look scared already. He's like, please don't call on me.
It's a
Please don't
typical
call.
Tuesday.
It's a typical Tuesday. Travis reminds me of that kid in class that was like, please don't call on me to read. Please don't call on me to read. Please. Oh, they called on me to read.
That's exactly who I was in school. 100%.
Like, make yourself look like super distracted all the time so they don't call on you.
Fake
Act like
writing.
I'm writing notes over
Yeah,
here.
you're
Like, I'm in the middle of something. Leave me
I'm
alone.
trying to make a note of what you're saying, teacher.
Don't make eye contact.
Don't make eye. That's exactly it. Look everywhere but at the teacher. That's funny. Oh, man. But, yeah, what's new in your guys' lives?
Shed life for you, Travis.
Woo!
The shed life.
Building a 14 by 18 shed so I can put all my toys in it
That's super awesome.
and give me a space to get away from my wife.
You gotta hide in the shed.
Extra
be the
living
man.
area.
She goes, why do you need that shed insulated?
It's a he shed.
I got to make sure I got heat in there. Get out of the house.
It's a he shed.
That's funny.
That's funny, yeah. That's pretty good. Did you guys go vote?
I did.
Yeah, voted.
I
7
will,
a.m.
after work, I will today.
After work, yep.
You guys are voting today.
I sent Travis the address where he needs to go.
That's good. Did you give him the wrong address? So you guys the wrong place?
Absolutely not.
That'd be funny. He shows up, he's the only one there. Like, what? Where am I?
I'm glad I looked, though, because they gave me a new spot.
Yeah.
I would have known.
Alex in electrical. He lives across the street from the polling place.
Yep.
It's not the one he gets to go to. He just told me he has to drive like way away from where he is. He literally can walk across the street to the one place and they won't let him vote there.
That's so funny.
It's great. I think it's good. Good humor. But yeah, no, I took my boys this morning. You know, did our civic
Did
duty.
they vote?
No, they did not. They asked a lot of questions though. I'm proud of them. They asked some questions. They were trying to understand what we were doing and why we were doing it. So that was pretty cool.
Hopefully it made sense to him.
Yeah, I think so. I think my oldest boy, he gets it a little bit. My youngest is kind of like, cool, mom and dad are getting stickers.
Do we get ice cream after?
Yeah, like, is there candy at the end of this thing or how do we do it? So, yeah, no, it was pretty cool though. Both boys started hockey this last weekend.
Exciting.
I am a dad of 2 hockey players now.
Sounds expensive.
It's
It's gonna keep
not
you
fun. I'll tell you that much. I learned that the race car is going to get a lot slower this year.
Yeah.
I got roped into coaching the youngest, so that was good. I coach both teams now. I was only coaching one member.
Well, now you got 2.
Now I have 2. And I was like, okay, I signed up this year and I'm like, I'm only coaching one kid. They're like, deal. We did placements and then they called me like, hey, how do you feel about coaching a second one? I'm like, I'd prefer not to. They're good. We don't have another coach, so you're in.
Nice.
I'm like, what? And so I went into this and they're like, don't worry. We've got a lead. We're good. I showed up to the first practice. They're like, oh, the lead's not here. He quit. So you're the lead now too. So I get a practice plan for all the kids now too. This is great. Lovely.
Well, I think you'll do good.
Yeah, it's going to be 50 minutes of sharks and minnows for 23 weeks.
You do pretty good at managing us, so
It's like a bunch of kids.
you
so
should be
it
able to
works.
keep kids
Yeah.
in line.
I think I got this. We got this. You guys have really set me up for success here.
You're
This is
welcome.
good. Yeah, you guys are great. You
I'll
guys
start fighting people later if you want.
you gave me the tools to be my own boss. I like it. Yeah, if you could, start fighting each other, and then I'll stick you both in the penalty boxes. This would be great. But yeah,
I don't want
anyways,
to hurt Chad.
you won't hurt Chad.
No, I don't want to have to hurt Chad.
You don't want to hurt your face on Chad's fist, or what?
So I'm assuming that once this gets more live with cameras, people are going to understand why this is a joking matter.
Chad will hurt you.
Big time.
Hey, Kyle, what did we do this weekend?
Not much.
Did we-
No party, no beer.
No party?
No beer, yeah.
None.
Hold that beer, no beer, yeah. Actually, no, my roommate, he actually finished building a keezer in our apartment. So we have 5 taps of homemade brew on our in our apartment. It's pretty wild.
That's pretty
wild.
sweet.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a pretty bold, like adventure there. Like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Most people are like, what do you want to do on Saturday? You guys are like, we're going to build our own.
It's always happy hour at Kyle's house.
Yeah, right.
It's wild. Yeah, no, he's an engineer. He just finished completing it like 2 days ago.
That's cool.
It's really nice.
I've noticed that he's been a lot slower lately around the office.
He has been asking for a lot of Advil, too.
He's just super hungover. Yeah, no, I have to say, how about those Minnesota Vikings though, real quick?
7-1.
7-1, right?
You like that? You like that?
Kirk Cousins in the office today.
We're almost gonna make it to the Super Bowl and get disappointed.
Can't wait to be disappointed in a few more weeks. It's gonna be great. But yeah, I know last week we talked a little bit about cheap versus value. And I felt like we made a lot of sense with that episode. I went back and listened to it myself, and I think it's important to talk about that topic because in this world, I think it's so easy to look past that. And I've had a lot of customers call me up and say, "You're absolutely right." Like what you said there, open their eyes. A lot of people realize that they may have been looking past the value aspect just because of a cheap price. And I thought we'd piggyback on that and talk a little bit about moving forward without a set in stone plan. That's the next step of it is, you find a product, and a lot of people, they delay their own purchases because they feel like they have to have it all figured out to move forward, right? And sometimes it's just a decision in your company, right? You think you have to have the whole plan figured out before you can move forward. And sometimes the best things we've ever done for our business has been done kind of by the seat of our pants, if you will, right? We knew what the end goal was. We just didn't know how to get to that goal yet. So we started kind of bouncing off the walls as we went down the hallway trying to figure out how to get to the other end.
Taking action.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, action is the first step to success, right? You can't accomplish things by doing nothing.
Exactly.
So, that's what I've always told people is that, waiting to have a plan a lot of times is just an excuse, right? It's a reason to delay. And, so I want to talk a little bit about that because it seems lately we run into more and more people who feel like they need to have everything figured out now to make that purchase. Or, they're forgetting that they have some time. Because the purchase, not by you buy today doesn't mean today you have to be using that machine instantly, right? It gives you some time. Sometimes the first step is taking that step, right? That's the first step. So having the plan, you're trying to jump to step 10 when you haven't even completed step 1. And that's what I tell people is that, purchasing the equipment is one of the steps in the process. And then you can work on the little details. There's so many things that go into making a decision on your business that you have to think about that. No matter how hard you think about it, you're never really prepared, right? There's always a variable. There's always an unknown. So you could have the best plan and, it completely gets blown up in 1 week, right?
Yeah, there's never going to be a perfect time.
Never. There's never a perfect time. I guess I would ask you guys that. Do you guys ever feel like you have everything figured out? Like to move forward that I've got it all figured out?
No, not at all.
No.
I know what my big goal is, and every day I just want to take actions towards the bigger goal.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same way. I think I set goals, and then I take steps towards those goals, right? And my goal is, as an example, if my goal was to own a CNC machine, I'd pick out the brand I want, right? And get that CNC machine on order, realizing that, I do have to figure out how to set it up, how to learn it, how to use it, how to install it in our business. There's a lot of things I'm going to have to do after the fact, but none of those things matter if I don't actually have a CNC machine, right?
Exactly.
Travis, what about you?
So for me, I'm sure you guys have noticed in the amount of time we've worked together, I make choices pretty quick.
Yeah.
I don't really think about them a lot. And
Yeah.
they seem to usually just fall together in the end.
Yep.
So, that's just me personally. If you sit there and just think about it, like you said, it's an excuse. If you need something, you're looking into something, there's a reason you started looking at that product or whatever you're trying to move forward with. And for me in my life, it's the shed.
Yep.
I needed a shed. My parents sold their place. I had nowhere to store my stuff. I just made a decision, said, what is the largest I can put on this property? If I can afford it, I'm buying it. That's the way I did.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, there's so many questions you could have been asking, right, to delay that shed. But at the end of the day, it's I need somewhere to store the stuff I used to keep on my parents' land.
Yep.
Like I have to put this stuff somewhere, and it's you solve the problem, and you'll figure kind of the logistics out after, right? I mean, I know that already with the shed, you've had to work on some permit stuff, and
Correct.
there's things that you're working on, but it came after you decided to purchase the shed or purchase the materials.
I didn't even know I needed the permits, to be honest. I talked to a contractor. He's well known in the area, and he's like, I'll take care of the permits for you. I'll do all that for you. Obviously, I'm going to pay him for whatever he's got to do. But the next thing he asked, he's like, well, what about electrical? I'm like, that's not something I can afford right now. He's like, well, do you want to plan for it? I was like, yeah, I'm going to plan for it later. It's just something, run power to it, drill a hole in the wall, and it's done. So even though it's something I would like to have, didn't need to have it right now. Shed's going to work for what I needed it for.
You really are moving into the shed, aren't you?
Dude, I've got some plans.
That's good. Awesome. Did you put a bathroom in there?
I just pee outside. We're out in the country.
I think we've established.
I forgot about that. I'm sorry. I've gotten.
That was
I
a year ago
I
conversation.
forgot that conversation from a year ago. Travis had already established that he isn't afraid to use his yard. No, that's true though. I mean, like you said, it's things that you didn't really plan for, but it's you move forward, right? Because it's an actual product that you needed to use.
Yep.
Yes, Kyle, for you, where do you stand on that, figuring things out?
Yeah, so on my side of things, I guess when I'm looking at camera equipment, something I want to buy that might elevate a video that I'm working on, I'll kind of compare and contrast some lenses or like a gimbal I might want to use. And obviously these are some pretty costly purchases that I might make. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for comparing and contrasting, just kind of what products I might be looking at, seeing what I'd be getting, end-wise, and figuring out, what's going to be the better option, whether I'm going to want to be spending more money on something so I can have more money on like a lens or, something smaller. So there's a lot that goes into just kind of those little menial purchases that might not, someone might not consider from the get-go.
Yeah, and I guess when you think about that, like even through all that research, do you ever feel like you have it all figured out?
No, I'm always like worried as soon as I, click that purchase button, like, oh, did I make a mistake or should I have gotten this? Or, there's always a little bit of buyer's remorse.
It is, and that's what I think I want people to hear is that like even the most well thought out plans still have concerns, right? And do you guys, kind of going back around, do you guys ever, find yourself struggling to get past something that relatively is small, just because you make it a much harder on yourself or much bigger than it needs to be? Like, do you guys ever catch yourself like, man, what if this happens? And then you just get so hung up on it to find out that like it never happens?
Oh yeah, I mean, pretty common.
Yeah.
Especially when we looked at or talked about selling the house and different ways to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's, I mean, you and I kind of joke about that is because I even said that to you, right? We're sitting there talking about it and you're like, what about this? And I'm like, dude, I think you're making a bigger deal out of something that doesn't matter. But to you, it was like the biggest deal in the world. And then once we finally got to that point and you looked at it, you were like, yeah, you were right. Like it wasn't a big deal at all,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's actually changed your entire opinion of your own house.
Absolutely.
That's actually why you didn't move, is because you realized like, wow, actually this is a lot better than I realized. And like a few upgrades gets me exactly what I wanted without having to move.
Exactly.
So I think that's huge, to think about that. I guess, what about you guys?
I'm going to go back to my shed situation again.
Yeah.
This morning, I was out there with my contractor, making sure it was placed properly.
Yep.
In my head, I kept thinking that we needed to move the shed. And he says, well, why do you need to move the shed? I said, I want my trailer to park on the side of the shed. He said, well, I made it so you're far enough off the street that you can have your truck and trailer in front of the shed. He came up with a solution right away, but for me, I thought I had to keep moving this thing and moving it and moving it, and there was no need for it. So I was just overthinking things.
Yeah.
There was no reason for it.
Yeah, you make it more complicated.
Exactly.
And exactly. He already had the plan there. Like
He already
he's the
figured it out.
professional. He's done it. Like, hey, don't worry. You don't got to keep doing this. Kyle, what about you? Struggling ever with that stuff? I know you just mentioned that sometimes you worry about, did you make a mistake or buyer's remorse? But, do you ever get hung up on something so small that you find out it's just not a big part of it?
Yeah, it's easy to be a worrywart, It's easy to kind of get stewing in your head about something you might, decide on that might affect you for like a couple of months or a year or two. So,
Yeah.
Those kind of decisions I've kind of found myself in a lot as I've gotten older, as I've kind of fallen out of, being in school, going from school to, a work-life balance.
Yeah.
Those kind of decisions weigh a lot more on you,
For sure. Yeah. And a lot of it, people don't want to make mistakes, right? Nobody wants to make a mistake. You hear the statement, buy once, cry once, right? It's that was what's in people's mind. They want to make a sound decision. But the problem is a lot of times they get so caught up on things that really are minor in the whole decision-making process that they miss big things because they're worrying about the things that really are not of concern, And, to me, I feel like if I don't plan out everything, I'm not prepared, right? That's how I've always felt. And the reality is that most cases I'm wasting my time planning for things that never actually transpire, right? Situations that never develop. I've wasted more time probably in my life worrying about the ifs than I have worrying about or working on the things I can actually control. I'm always worried about what if this happens, and, for me, I've always felt like as I get into the idea of worrying, I would ask you guys, where do you stand on that? What's your guys' thought process on that? Do you guys feel like with this topic, moving forward without a plan, like how do you feel about that in your life? Like moving forward without a plan?
I just go back to the having a big goal and knowing what that is and taking the little actions every day to get yourself to the big goal. You're not going to be able to achieve great things all at once. It comes by doing many little things repetitively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely good to like kind of make a skeleton, what you want to do or what kind of goals you want to accomplish, whether it's like in a day or in a year, following that, letting the wind take you at some instances, but still having, your goals.
For sure.
My plans usually just fall together. So for me, I never
Just wing us. He's just lucky.
No, I don't know. I'm just that kind of person. Sometimes they don't. Obviously,
Yeah.
you guys know about my truck situations in the past. But you know what? There's a reason that you started looking at something, and if you really need it or you want it, just go for it.
But would it be safe to say that your truck situation kind of got you to where you are today?
It is 100%, because then it made me realize, okay, well, you know what? This was something I wanted. I didn't necessarily need it.
Yeah.
Having a 1-ton diesel truck for a guy that's just driving to work, it doesn't make sense. You know,
Right.
in my enclosed trailer and, you know, pulling a snowmobile and 4-wheeler around, you know, I started making choices that were more smart. Like now I've got the half-ton truck. It's a newer truck, and I don't have issues with it.
Correct. Yeah, I was going to say, but it kind of led you down that road. Like it made you
100%.
realize where the value was. And
Exactly.
unfortunately, I mean, that's a perfect example. There's a lot of people in life that learn that way. Like they learn from mistake, right?
Yep.
They make a mistake, and then they're like, well, crap.
No.
You know, but they learn the facts of, I have invested all this time and energy in something I could have controlled, right?
Yep.
And then there's people who don't go down that road because they do spend the time doing, you know, the research and, you know, they figure it all out and think their way through it, and they make one purchase one time. And, you know, sometimes as an example, like you said it, how many trucks did you buy before you ended up on the truck you did, right? There was a bunch.
A lot.
For me, I'm the exact opposite of you. I bought one truck.
Yep.
I bought the truck I wanted, and, you know, it was a lot more upfront, but I haven't had to buy countless trucks. I've driven the same truck for the whole entire time you've known me.
Yep.
You know, and that truck has been, you know, everything I needed it to do, because I bought a truck for a purpose. I figured out what I was using it for, and that's what I bought. And it would have been really easy for me to be the exact same way you were and go buy a cheaper truck to try to save money, right? To only have to buy another truck to finally end up at the truck I was at anyways. And then I've lost all that depreciated value, all that time, wasted it, had headaches, all that stuff, right?
Watching you and what you did was a smart way, because for me, I was trying to go the cheap route. Every time, you're always just like, why are you looking at these trucks that have 300,000? Oh, it's only $9,000. It's only $9,000.
Yep.
And it backfired every time. By the time it was said and done, I could have spent 20, 30 grand on a truck, been done, and I would still be driving it today.
And that's exactly it. And I think that's a great, you know, guys, I would say segue into what we're talking about today. You know, like you could buy a CNC machine today, right? Like you can go buy the cheap CNC machine. You can buy the one that, you know, you're referring to, Travis. Those exist out there. There are those $25,000 machines out there.
Yep.
But 99% of the time, those machines always lead the person down the road of owning the $50,000 machine.
Exactly.
I mean, unless you're a hobbyist in your garage, I mean, the likelihood of you needing all the bells and whistles anyways is probably not there. So there's better decisions you can make anyways. But, you know, I'm looking at it from a business standpoint. When you look at businesses, it's so easy to run down these paths of cheap, right? We talked about that last week, versus value. But they always end up in the same, you know, the same hallway, right? We all end up back, all doors kind of lead to the same ending, and that is you end up needing more, right? And so you have a choice. Either spend the money now or spend it later anyways, and it's buy once, cry once, right? It's you get what you buy, and a lot of times you can buy your second machine the first time, right? Like, let's just buy the one we know we're going to end up with, and yeah, it costs me more money up front. Maybe I have to finance some of it. Maybe I have to, you know, ask for, you know, a investor to help me out. Maybe I need to do something, but that money's going to return itself a lot faster because I'm not fighting the machine. I'm not fighting the processes. I'm not fighting the customers, right? There's a case where if I buy the wrong machine and the machine doesn't perform, the customers are arguing with me and telling me that what I'm doing isn't working, right? These cabinets don't work because they don't fit right, or these cabinets, they have a dimple in them, they have ripples in them, whatever it is. When finishing it, it's not acceptable. You're wasting so much time with those conversations that's money.
Yep.
And if you just had spent a little bit more money on your machine up front, you're not worrying about that crap. Or you're not sitting there sanding parts trying to make them good enough, right? So, you know, let's talk about the idea of moving forward with a CNC without a plan, right? Since that's what we talk about, CNC. You know, one major thing we seem to run into is people believe they cannot buy a machine until they have every option. I feel like this is an American trait, right? Like, we want it all, and we want it all now. Like, if we cannot get it all, then we're going to settle for less quality to make sure we get it all. Like, why do we do that? Why do people give up performance and quality in a product just so they can have a flashy whiz bang, right? Like, you see it in a lot of things, but CNC machines is where I see a lot of it. Well, I really want to have that tool changer, and I really want to have that vacuum pump, but man, I really need to have that laser too. If I don't add that laser, then the deal's off. I'm not going to buy anything, right? So they find a Chinese or an imported machine. Now I got the laser. That one's the same price as yours, and it came with the laser. Okay, so you got the laser now, but the machine doesn't run, right? Like the machine breaks down. So great, you have a laser that sits in your shop, and you get to stare at it. You're gonna grab your machine and move it around by hand because it's not working. Like it's something to think about. Like nobody's gonna sell you a machine. Well, I shouldn't say that. Most people aren't gonna sell you a machine that isn't gonna run when it shows up, right?
Correct.
We're not going to do that for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, most companies aren't gonna, right? The machines generally show up and they're gonna work.
Yep.
That's not the wow factor. I expect the machine to work when it shows up, and you're gonna feel good for the first 30 days. At least I hope so. But I bet 6 months down the road, you're gonna have some regret in you, because there's gonna be things you're gonna find. The support's either not there, the performance isn't there, something's not working, and it's like all because you wanted that whiz bang, right? You wanted that laser attachment, right?
Yep.
When you could have bought the American product or the product that is backed with support and a reputation and things you can depend on, and you can add that laser later on, right? Like you don't have to have it all now. The reality is more than likely you're going to add all these options anyways, and you're not going to use 3/4 of them for 6 months.
Right.
Because you're just learning the machine, right? The tool changer, the vacuum, that's something you need out of the gate, right?
Necessary.
Yeah, but like adding the 4th axis or adding the laser right out of the gate, sometimes if that's what pushes you over your budget, then take them off. Get what you need if it's a budget-driven decision. Now, don't get me wrong. If your budget allows and you're going to use it, yeah, buy them all now because you don't have to add them on yourself, right? But to just forego a purchase or hold an entire purchase because you're worried about the fact that you don't get every option up front, that just seems silly to me.
Seems crazy.
Yeah. When looking at purchasing, it makes sense to purchase all now on certain items, right? Like cars. There's certain things, like you're not going to buy the car without the leather seats in it and then add the leather seats later on.
Upgrade the audio package.
Yeah,
right?
like, you know what I'm saying? Like most people are going to buy what they want in that aspect because you're buying it once. There's not a lot of there. But even with that, there's certain things in cars that you may change later, like the rims. And, there's things that you can buy aftermarket that you don't have to have right away. Now, there's some things you can't add on to your purchase later. You have to think about that, which that's the stuff you should be looking at. And you don't want to buy, everything now when you can get away with not buying it though, right? So as an example, your home. Like, do you go out when you buy a house and you say, I'm not buying a house until it has every possible upgrade that you're going to do the house? No. Most people buy a house and they look at it as like, we can add that, right? We can add a fence. We can add a shed, right? We can put new carpet in. There's things that we can do to our house to up the value. We still bought the house, right? Mm-hmm. The same with equipment. Just because you want to have that laser, because you want to have the 4th axis, doesn't mean you have to add it today. Buy the right piece of equipment. Buy the house and add the fence later, right? Add the vacuum system you want later. Add the dust collector you want later. Like, you don't have to. I've heard guys call us up and they're like, well, in order to buy the CNC machine, I'm going to have to upgrade my air compressor. I got to replace the dust collector. I got to buy a new edge bander. I've got to buy a sander. Like,
the shop needs AC.
Yeah, the shop needs AC. Like, why are you buying all that? We need a forklift? Like, you didn't need all that stuff 20 minutes ago. Why, by adding a CNC machine, do you have to go so crazy? Like, add the CNC machine and do nothing else different. Keep doing what you've been doing every day, and then let the machine pay for that new forklift, and then the new dust collector, and then the new air compressor. Like, yeah, you might have to turn something else off while the CNC runs because your air compressor can't keep up with both, right? It's no different than what you're doing now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right now, you're not doing them together anyways because you don't have a machine. So it's like you don't realize how efficient you're going to be with that CNC. That running one by itself still saves you time.
Yep.
And so you got to not go overboard. You can't overthink this thing. And thinking about the cabinetry jobs that you see in houses, right? Do you have to do the entire house at one time?
That's what I thought, but you don't.
Right. You and I talked about that. You can start with one room. Mm-hmm. A lot of people do that. Why not do the same thing when it comes to your shop? You don't have to start with every piece of equipment in your shop and replace them. Start with one room. Mm-hmm. Okay, we want to up our production, right? So we're going to add the CNC machine. Then we'll upgrade the dust collection system. Let's see how much demand. I've seen guys throw away dust collection systems just because they assume it doesn't work. And I'm like, that dust collector will probably, I don't want to risk it. Okay. Like, you think about that, like your dust collector may have worked just fine, but because you've got this stigma, right? That I have to replace it all.
A lot of people, for some reason, think you have to have like an 8-10 horsepower dust collector to run just the CNC machine.
Correct.
When the reality is a 3 horsepower Cyclone, 1,000-1,500 CFM is all a guy needs. They're like, oh, I've got 3 of those.
Yeah.
Well, then why? I talk them out of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, don't spend the money when you could buy an option on the machine you need.
Well, that's exactly it. So when you think about that, it's really not a hard decision to make when you start taking out the fluff.
Yep.
It's the fluff that gets people in trouble. It's the thinking they need more than they need, right? And with us, I'm one of those people that I tend to do that myself. I overthink it, right? I think I have to do so many other things to make something happen, and you don't have to. Like, you don't have to have that planned out. Just start with the basics. Start with what you need and work your way up. And it's something that I can't harp on enough, because for a lot of companies, that's where they go wrong. There's a phrase that I've always tried to live by, and they've always said, if you can't downgrade your life for 1 year for a better future, it means you care more about what people think of you.
I agree.
Like, you're more worried about what people's opinions are of you than you are the end goal. And that's what people, I think, get caught up in. I'm going to buy a CNC, but if I don't buy all new stuff, then people are going to think, like, who cares what they think? Right? Like, my buddy's going to make fun of me if I buy the more expensive machine when he just bought this cheapy machine, and why wouldn't I? Like, so let you be the one that shows your buddy you're playing the long game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to give you crap, right? You spent more money than him. But in the end, who's looking at who when the machine's running?
Absolutely.
It's sometimes more about that thing. It's being smart. It's the smart play. Thinking about your business. Is it smart to trust the future of your business on something that might not even be here in a year?
It's scary to think about.
Right? You can literally go on Alibaba and buy a 4-door pickup truck for $2,500. Why is everybody not buying those pickup trucks then?
It's because it looks funny.
Yeah, it looks funny. It does look funny. I'll give you that.
That thing looked weird.
There's a weird looking truck, but I'll give you credit. But seriously though,
Yeah.
if we're just worried about cost, everybody would be buying those. You know why nobody buys those?
Same reason they don't sell Geo Metros.
Yeah, it's the same reason why people don't buy other cheap product. Is they're worried about the support they're going to get, the functionality. I don't want to spend $2,500 on something that's going to break down and leave me stranded. Well, if you're not going to do it that way, then why would you do it with your business? You're breaking. It's like buying a Alibaba truck for your shop. It's going to break down and leave your crew stranded. Your whole entire shop is going to be stranded because you chose to save a few bucks. What do you think your employees think of you when they're sitting there fighting this Chinese machine that you saved $5,000 on?
They're usually calling us behind their boss's back, trying to figure out how we can get a machine.
Yeah, exactly. They're not very happy, right? The boss is like, well, we saved a bunch of money. Yeah, I saved $10,000 on that machine.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
You know, that's what I hear. It's like, you didn't save $10,000. You just kicked the $10,000 down the road for you to spend 20 later. Right?
More.
I mean, you're going to spend it on something. It's going to show back up. If all the CNC machines for $10,000 cheaper ran the same, none of the expensive machines would be around. I
agree with that.
We all exist for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to think about when it comes to that. You know, you don't have to have it all figured out. Now, you know, you got to create the revenue in the shop for the shop upgrades, in my opinion. Let the CNC machine do the work. Let it be your workhorse and let it pay for the things that you need later on. Your workhorse in the shop is your CNC machine. The CNC machine, generally speaking, everything runs through it at some point, right?
Yep.
It cuts everything. It does everything. So having a workhorse there makes sense for later on. You end up in a better spot financially if your machine is always dependable.
Yep.
And so buying a new dust collector does not always make your shop more money, right? If the dust collector is new versus the used one you have, if they're both picking up dust, are you making any difference in money?
No.
More than likely, no. You know, therefore, putting the collector in before you buy a machine doesn't make sense, right? It's not exactly a good return on your investment. That dust collector is probably making you less money than that CNC machine. You know, it's all kind of relative. You know, people overthink their CNC purchases by thinking by buying a new machine, you have to buy a new compressor, new desk collector, new edge bander. You have to buy all that. Like, no. Stop buying things that assist the CNC machine before you even have the CNC machine.
Right.
Get the CNC machine functioning properly before you have to worry about buying all this other stuff. Now, if you don't have an edge bander and you realize like we're getting in it, like, yeah, it might make sense to buy them both together, right? But if you can't afford to buy them together, buy the CNC machine and put the edge banding on yourself. Just don't be lazy about it. Like that's what it comes down to at that point. And, what about power? People feel like they have to upgrade their power because they can't run everything at one time. Being honest, how many people actually run everything in their house or their shop at once?
Never.
Very seldomly.
Yeah. I mean, I found a lot of people come back to me later saying they worried about the power when they didn't even have to, that they found the CNC is running by itself a lot of times because they're not using the table saw anymore. Or their paint booth, they're cutting everything in a day and then they're spending the next day painting it all. They're not doing them simultaneously, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you're a lot of times thinking about power and, man, we're going to need 400 amps of power here. Like, dude, people run these out of their home garage. I think there's a road jam out there. I hear a bunch of horns out.
I don't know if you can hear it, but
yeah, there's a bunch of.
We'll find out.
Yeah, there's a bunch of forklift horns out there. I think everybody's having a.
Maybe they're racing.
They might. I'm gonna pretend no. I'm gonna.
See your lips moving, but I can't make out the words. I'm deaf.
Yep, I'm
Did
gonna.
you guys
pretend
hear the burnout?
Yeah, stop. No, I can't hear this. La la la. Yeah, but no, they. That's something to think about though. Is that your power is something that people overthink too.
100%.
I have to upgrade my whole building to 3-phase before I can buy this purchase. Why? Just buy a phase converter. buy a VFD. Like, buy one piece of equipment with your equipment that will solve the problem. Don't upgrade the whole shop for $50,000.
I think the majority of the issue that customers have with the 3-phase situation is when you're looking at the Chinese machines, they don't have single-phase options.
Correct.
Until they find somebody reputable that has that option like us. We can always get you single-phase on the 4x8, 5x10s, and people just don't understand that.
You have to think about the long play.
Yep.
And we see so many people begin looking at cutting corners right out of the gate, right? Like the first thing they do is like, how can I get by, right? And then they end up having to shop all over again and replace cheap stuff they bought up front.
Yep.
Like don't try to cheap to get by. Just buy the equipment that you need. Find the right equipment. Yeah. If you have single phase power in your shop, it might mean that you have to buy certain pieces of equipment to run the correct vacuum pumps or the correct, items depending on what level of machine you buy. But there are also single phase options for a lot of things. Like, you just ask the questions. Don't just assume you're smarter than you are, right? Mm-hmm. Ask the questions. These are professionals.
Other weaknesses, we're slow learners and we're not particularly good listeners.
Then there's those people. They won't ask questions and they just assume that they have it all figured out. And those people tend to spend more money in the long run.
Yep.
Right?
I agree.
And so, in my opinion, I've always said it's better to, play with the idea of buy less up front, but get more quality service and dependability, right? I'd rather have more for my value. Like, I want to buy a piece of equipment that I'm not going to have to replace, right? I can upgrade my dust collector. I'll add the edge bander later. I might even add options to that machine as I go. There's certain things I just can't afford today, but I will not replace that, right? My example, again, goes back to my truck. I bought the truck I wanted up front. I didn't buy all the bells and whistles on my truck. I had to add things to my truck as I've gone, right? But it's the truck I could afford to buy at the time that did the job. The nice thing is wheels were cheap compared to a truck, right? Mm-hmm. I've had the same truck pulling the same trailer over and over for several years now. It's a lot cheaper to buy that once than to buy several trucks or end up broke down on the side of the road because I bought the wrong truck.
That's Brandon passing me with the horn as I'm broke down all the time.
Deuces out the window. Later, brother. That was my horn on my truck as I drove away.
Didn't take me long to figure it out.
But yeah, I mean, that's really where you're at. So, what are some other things that you see customers overthinking when they purchase, guys?
I mean, we've really talked about it, but it's the power in the shop. The guys that come in, they're like, hey, it's going to take $48,000 for me to put 3-phase in. So I'm no longer going to be able to afford a CNC. And then you show them that, hey, man, it's only going to cost you $2,000 for me to include a VFD for your pump. And he's like, oh, sweet.
They overthink it, though.
Big time.
They think $48,000 has to be spent before I can buy a CNC machine.
Yep.
How many people don't even tell you that that's their concern? They just tell you they can't afford the CNC right now.
It probably happens all the time.
Right. We try to get it out to you.
Biggest thing is I'm like, dude, guys are running these out of their homes.
Yeah.
These guys don't have that option.
My brother had one in his garage.
Yeah.
in the middle of a residential neighborhood. He lives on a golf course. Like, I promise you, he didn't have some massive power there. Like, it was a standard home, and he had a CNC in his garage. His wife parked in the driveway. She loved it in the winter, specifically. But, you know, what do you see, Chad? What do you see in people overthink? What's something that comes to mind to you when you think about customers overthinking the decision?
Well, my mind went to the cost difference between American and Chinese machines, being $5,000 or $8,000 apart, and they're making that like the glaring issue, when my glaring issue is why we're so close in price.
I love that statement. That's one of my favorite statements in sales. When people are like, "You're $8,000 apart," I'm like, "That's it?" And they're like, "What do you mean that's it?" I'm like, "Do you think about what you're getting for only $8,000 different? Like, you get me. I'm not worth $8,000 a year. That in itself sold, right? Like, I promise you, I know a lot more about this industry than the guy you're talking to at that company. I'm willing to put myself up against that guy."
Absolutely.
He probably doesn't even know the engineering that went into that machine. You guys all understand our machines, right? Right there is $8,000. Can you, let me just ask this question. Can you hire me for $8,000 a year?
No.
Can you hire you for $8,000 a year?
Not a chance.
Right. Anybody listening to this, would you do a job for $8,000 a year? No. Everybody listening right now is saying no. So for $8,000 alone, you're telling me the most support, training, service, everything you get from an American-made company alone isn't worth that $8,000?
Plus the longevity.
But that's my point. That's just for the first year.
Yep.
Now, what about year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 10, right? In 10 years, I'm going to work on you. I'm going to work on that machine. I'm going to help you. I'm going to work on your needs. I'm going to assist you. I'm going to be your technical support for $8,000. You'd probably pay it if you knew you had tech support for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. That can remote into your computer and diagnose problems. It'd be like buying a car and GM can log right in and say, "Oh, your check engine light's on because your gas cap is loose."
Right. God, I hated that one. That was my least favorite thing when I worked at
But
GM.
we know that doesn't happen. You have to go into the dealer.
Drive to the
do
dealership.
that stuff. Same with like a pendant controller. It locks up on you. You're sending it in. And
well, that's exactly. People don't realize that. For $8,000, you get a real controller too.
Exactly.
Like, it's actual CNC technology where, there's a computer there and all that, but there's actually a CNC board. Like, a lot of these import machines don't even have CNC boards in them. They have literally a PLC controller. They are literally running off a PLC. It's no different than a conveyor belt system at UPS. It's just telling the machine what to do. Mm-hmm. Turn this switch on, turn that switch off. It's no different. It's nothing intelligent. There's no brain there. But they put it in a fancy big box. You want me to put your computer in a big box? Like, I'll do whatever you ask me to do. But no, the reality is like, you have to think about that. Like $8,000, and I'm talking, that's an extreme, right? I mean, in most cases we're closer than that, but we're going to talk $8,000. For $8,000, you get all of that, right? Now let's talk about the drive system. How many $8,000 different machines have ball screws on them?
None.
Zero.
Not a chance.
You never run into an import machine with ball screws on it. You know why? Because the machines aren't accurate enough to have them. Ball bearings are the most accurate drive system on the market. They're not going to put that on a machine if the machine's not accurate, because all it's going to do is bind up and cause problems. Your machine's not going to run. That's going to cause them problems. So they put rack and pinion on it. It's cheaper. It's easier. They don't have to worry about the accuracy. It's got tolerances built into it. As it wears out, your machine wears out.
Yep.
Most Chinese machines last 3 years. It's the rude awakening. Most Chinese machines and import machines, and I don't even have to call them Chinese machines, import machines in general, most import machines, they last 3 years at max.
Then it's time to replace them.
So for $8,000, you got 3 years. Where you buy a shop saver and our first machine is 23 plus years and counting and still in the field running. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to use easy numbers and say it's a 10-year machine, right? So 7 more years of use out of your machine wasn't worth $8,000.
It's like
$1,000 a year, roughly, right? Yeah, not bad. I'd pay $1,000 a year more to know that my machine's going to keep running.
What they say about picking up pennies and letting dollars blow by.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what people do. They literally look at the upfront price tag and they forget everything else. Because guess what? That sales guy lied to me. He was really good at it too. He's going to be there. He's going to pick the phone up. He's going to take care of me. My favorite statement, Chad, is when customers tell me, but I'm talking to the owner of the company. You're also talking to the tech support guy, the janitor, and you're talking to the guy who is in charge of cleaning the parking lot. Mm-hmm. You know why you're talking to the owner? Because he doesn't have anybody else to talk to. You can call and talk to us too. Like, I promise you, I'll get on the phone anytime you want to talk.
You can call me 30 times a day. Start calling him 30 times a day.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Call him 30 times a day. See how many times he answers. My question is this. Of course he answers your call right now. He's the owner of the company. He's trying to sell you a $30,000 machine.
Well, it's easy.
Once he has your money, who's he picking the phone up for?
The next guy can get money from?
The next guy's wallet he's trying to open up, right? Where tech support here is a dedicated group of people. Their only job is to answer the call when you call. They don't care about the next sale. They care about the guy that already bought. They don't have that at their companies. So that's where you don't have to have a set plan, like, right? We're talking about that. Having a plan in place, like, you're going to step over certain things because you're so worried about having all the bells and whistles up front. Mm-hmm. You're going to give up all of these things we just talked about because you're trying to make sure you get it all at once. Expandability is the new buy it all now, in my opinion, right? With technology advancing in the world, it seems people have lost sight of the fact that you can get equipment that has expansion capabilities. You can buy a machine without an auto tool changer in some cases and even add them on later. It comes with a cost later, obviously, and they're still probably cheaper to buy it, new with it, but it's still cheaper to add a tool changer later on than replacing a poorly constructed machine or an import product that fails on you, right?
Absolutely.
Like if I can't afford the tool changer, I'm going to buy it without a tool changer. I can add it later on. It's still cheaper than buying the machine with the tool changer, and then in 2 years it fails, and I'm starting all over.
Yep.
You can upgrade things like vacuum, dust collection, air compressors, edge banders. We've talked about all those. You can do all that in the field. But thanks to the purchase you made up front, that's all you're upgrading. You're not replacing the whole machine or the way you do things. But if you buy a cheap machine, you're not going to have the revenue to buy more stuff later on, right? It's going to nickel and dime you. If you buy something now and the machine generates revenue, you can buy that new edge bander. But if you buy a cheap machine today, your next purchase is another CNC machine. You've not upgraded your edge bander. You haven't upgraded the shop equipment because you keep spending more money on the same thing you just bought.
Yep.
And time.
And lost customers and everything else that goes along with it. And buy the important stuff up front. Buy the important machine, and then that isn't going to nickel and dime you, right? Mm-hmm. You won't afford that new collector edge bander if you buy something cheaper just to try to step around what you think you need to do. Having a plan can hurt you sometimes. Like I'm going to plan to buy everything at one time. Like, no, just buy what you can afford. That's your plan. Buy what you need. Real quick, let's chat more about the topic of, taking the leap without a plan. Moving forward without a fully developed plan is okay, in my opinion. Like, I'll just say it. The plan is you moving forward, in my opinion. It is much more costly to your business to stop moving than it is to move slow. I'd rather move forward slowly than to not move it. What's worse? Sitting in traffic, stuck on the freeway, right? You're stuck, you can't move, can't do anything, or moving at 30 miles an hour in traffic. Stuck, right? Mm-hmm. Would everybody agree with me on that one?
Yeah.
Like, that's what you're doing to your business. Traffic congestion is going to happen. You're going to slow yourself down no matter what. When do you want to be stuck? You want to be stuck with a machine that doesn't run and you're stopped? Or do you want a machine, that's cutting and doing its thing? And yeah, you're moving a little bit slower because you couldn't afford to buy all the bells and whistles, right? Not yet, but that machine will get you there.
Absolutely.
So it's something to think about. If you slow your growth, or your movement because you don't have a set plan on everything, you will fall behind, obviously, right?
Yep.
You don't get to make up lost time or revenue that you lost later on, right? So move forward without the plan. You don't have to wait on that plan just because you don't have it. Like, if you slow everything down because you don't have a plan, you're going to lose money. You're literally missing sales. You're missing costs. People who don't buy a machine right now, like, we're going to get it next year because I got to get a plan in place. You're literally going to spend more money next year. I can guarantee it. The dollar isn't getting cheaper right now. Interest rates have been on the rise. Cost of materials are on the rise. Like, it's cheaper to buy today. Buy the machine and figure it out as you go. Waiting to buy it, if you can afford to do it today, is silly. You're literally going to save nothing.
I don't think anything's gotten cheaper in my life that I've looked at purchasing.
Me neither.
If I've waited.
Well, and the other thing, too, I hear customers say is like, well, I got to learn this thing before I can even get it.
That's crazy.
How are you going to learn it until you get the machine? You have to have the machine to learn it.
Yeah, not to mention you get no support. I'm not going to, no offense, but I'm not going to sit on the phone and teach you how to run something that you don't own.
Right.
Like, you get support when you own it. And that's my thing is, with many products today, you have a lead time. Use the lead time to your advantage,
Exactly.
right? Order your equipment, then make the list of the accomplishments you need to do, right? Maybe it's set up that power you were talking about. Maybe it's clear out the area where the machine's going to go. Maybe it's, completing the complementary utilities such as dust collection, air, things like that. Maybe it's learning that software, right? Now is an opportunity to start learning it. You got the software, you own it, you got the tutorials, you can start watching them, you can start calling tech support and asking questions. Like, now is the time to go through that. And then start looking at tooling and materials. You don't need to know all of that up front. How do you buy a tool for something you don't know what you have?
Right.
I'm going to buy tools. Well, what spindle do you have? Well, I'm looking at a 10 horsepower. Okay, well, this is the tool you need. Oh, crap, we ended up buying a 5. Guess what? The tool doesn't work anymore, right? Like, you have to buy stuff to fit the equipment you bought. It's often the biggest mistake when people think about having to learn a system is before they own the system, I have to learn it. Like, that's a big mistake. It's much easier to learn something that you have, and obviously something you can play with. How many of you guys learned how to program your, new TV or your new computer while it was still in the store? No.
It doesn't happen.
Everybody gets the program or the computer, the device, and then starts playing with it, right? Your new phone, right? Your iPhone. Everybody plays with their new iPhone the first day they get it, right? They don't. I gotta go do research. I gotta figure out how to use the new iPhone, and then I'll buy it.
Got to make sure I like all the features of the camera.
Yeah, no, they buy it. Yeah, exactly. They buy it and try it.
First thing you do is just don't buy an iPhone. But
there's that for you. Says the guy who struggles more with his phone than anybody I know. It's often, like I said, the big mistake is trying to know it all. But what feedback do you guys have for someone on the fence right now? Right now they're holding on, they're thinking about it. I don't have plans fully set yet. What's your advice to them right now, Chad?
A plan without action is just a speech. If you don't take action, you'll keep telling the same story over and over.
Say it one more time. I love that.
A plan without action is just a speech. If you don't take action, you'll keep telling the same story over and over.
That is the truth.
That was really good, Chad.
Yeah, good luck following that one. Yeah, I was trying to get there. I was trying to get to the clapping hands. I'm not fast on this button thing.
I handled it.
No, I got you. Yeah. Travis, good luck.
Honestly, I don't even know how I come after that, but some of it we've already talked about. But the thing is like in the CNC instance,
yeah,
you already know you want and need a CNC.
Yeah,
you need to get the CNC, and the rest will fall in place. The people that are talking about, I don't know, how about offloading the machine?
Yep.
Well, you don't even know what the weight of the machine is yet. You don't know what machine you're even purchasing. You can't plan for that until you have the machine in motion.
Correct.
Same thing with the power. You'll know the power once you have the equipment on order.
Yeah.
It's going to all fall into place. You have the lead time, like you said earlier, to figure that stuff out. The biggest thing that I feel like with customers is once they buy the machine, they just think that it's done. We're not going to do anything else with it. It's done, and I don't have to think about anything else. You're going to have to still figure out the trucking, the forklift, and that's all stuff that's going to have to happen because you know you have the machine on its way. You can't just procrastinate anymore.
Correct. Nobody's going to handle it for you anyways.
Exactly.
Thinking about it before you buy or after you buy doesn't change that. The only difference is after you buy, at least allows the machine to be started, right? Yep. You get it all figured out. Good, we got to figure it out. Now I'm ready for it. I need to have it. I got to have it tomorrow. I got to have it. There's a lead time still. Like now you're so excited that you're just irritated. Like give yourself something to do while you build the machine, right? Visit our website,
shopsaber.com.
Explore what you're looking for. Submit a request. Let us talk to you. We'll talk you through it. But the biggest mistake you can make is not contacting us and giving us the opportunity. The biggest mistake people can make is just, it's okay to buy an import machine. We'll figure it out later. I'll talk to ShopSaver in the next one. You're a fool. Absolute fool to not at least call us first, right?
Cost you double the amount of money if you go that route.
Yeah, correct. It's absolutely going to cost you more money to buy 2 machines than it will 1 machine.
And a lot more stress because now you have to move that old machine out to get your new machine in. And who wants it? Nobody.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Kyle. If I don't have my plan set fully, what's your advice?
Yeah, do your research. Compare and contrast, really. Give us a call, obviously. We'll guide you through pros and cons, what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You got to definitely, I thought you fell out of your chair there. You got so quiet. Yeah, you definitely got to trust your knowledge, right? Trust the research you've done. And if you can't trust the research you've done, that means you haven't done enough research, right? It means you haven't talked to enough people. If you're just going to somebody's website, clicking buy it now, you probably are in for a rude awakening.
Or they just let you see all the pricing, but they don't want to talk to you about power, how things work,
Correct.
or what vacuum's going to be better.
Or if they don't actually talk to you about features.
Anything.
Yeah, they don't talk to you about things that actually have anything to do with anything, right? Mm-hmm. If all they do is sell you cookie cutter machines and they don't understand what you're doing, are you set up for success? Probably not.
And I don't think customers also realize how knowledgeable we are.
Yeah.
We could tell you exactly, if you don't want to buy a dust collector from us or an air compressor from us or an edge bander from us, that's fine. But we can at least guide you in the right direction.
Correct.
We can tell you what you need for power, tell you what you need for dust collection. That way you're not stressing about it. Just let us do most of the hard work for you.
Yeah, we do this every day.
Exactly.
Allow us to do our jobs, right? Like, my recommendation is trust yourself first.
Yep.
Like, if you've gotten to this point, you likely aren't doubting your abilities, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what you do, there's a risk. Like, the reality is there's always going to be a risk in what you do. The quality of the equipment, especially a quality equipment like Shop Saber, right?
ShopSaber.com.
You have to trust the support that's around you. You have to. Plus, you have a higher return on your investment long-term when you trust quality equipment and quality people. That's the plan right there. That should be your plan. Everything else will figure itself out. You got to ask your way through it. Ask your sales guy to help you. They'll send you power requirements in most cases. They're going to tell you what you need to do. Like, they'll get you where you need to go. Your plan should be get the CNC machine and then figure it out from there, right?
Yep.
So plans are made through trial and error, in my opinion. You don't have to know the answer to every question. You just have to know where to look for them, right? If you have the right group of people around you, they'll provide you the answers. They'll help you. They'll get you where you need to go. You don't need to know everything about CNC. That's why you trust companies that do know everything you need to know about CNC. Importing a product, most of those companies don't know enough about their own product, let alone the industry. Companies like Shop Saber, we've been around 23 years. We've tried numerous different things. Trial and error is what we do internally, right? We try things that do and don't work, and then we don't release the things that don't work. That's what we do. Some of these other companies, they trial by customer, right? Send them out there, figure it out. Those didn't work, change the design.
That's probably why they switch them up every 3 to 5 years.
That's why you see such a turnover rate on products like that. So that's all I got. I'm long-winded. I'm exhausted now. Do you guys got anything to add to that?
I don't.
We should probably save some. Save some for next week.
Save some for next week?
Yeah, we're going to need more information for next week.
No, next week we've got an awesome episode
I was
coming
about
up.
to say, it's pretty exciting next week.
Yeah, I'm excited for next week's episode.
Travis isn't with us.
Yeah, he's completely lost.
I actually forgot about it, but now I do remember.
Yeah, he's like, what am I supposed to do next week?
Free ribs.
Free ribs. Yeah, that's all he heard in that whole email I sent out was, it's ribs. We have free ribs at work.
You like that? You like that?
No, in all seriousness, though, next week we're going to have a great topic. We're going to be talking with Connor and David from Geneva Capital. We're talking a little bit about the financing aspect of things, but it's actually more to do with, it's not going to be a boring episode about banking. It's actually going to be a lot to do with like Section 179 deductions, talking about some of that, but also we're really going to get deep into the expectations of the dollar in today's world. Like, what are you getting for a dollar in today? Like, how does it work? Where are we going? The trends, financing things versus paying cash. Like, there's going to be a lot of good things we're going to talk about next week because I think a lot of people are getting lost in the idea of what financing is today. So we're excited to talk about what we have to offer there. So that's next week. But for now, I got to get off to hockey practice, I think. What about you guys?
I'm going home.
You're going home?
Sure.
Nice. I like it.
I didn't know we were going home early, but I'm down.
Perfect. He's out of here. So with that, I'm Brandon.
I'm Chad.
I'm Travis.
I'm Kyle.
Thanks for talking shop with Shop Saber.